Barrel Surf Podcast.
Barrel Surf Podcast.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barrel Surf Podcast.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barrel Surf Podcast.
Barrel Surf Podcast.
Yeehaw!
Righty, welcome back to Barrel Surf Podcast. And today I'm sitting at home. We're doing a bit of a Zoom call today. And Adzi and Namu are busy doing other things, but I've got one of my best little mates that is a regular guest on the Barrel Surf Podcast, Micky Plowman. Thanks for joining, mate.
Thanks, Tbone. Great to be with you, mate.
That's the way. And I hear you've been up north. You've been teasing me with all these photos of some sessions up there. How's it been?
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was lucky to be away for a month, and got some really good waves and had some great times, and actually got to catch up with Adzi up there. He was up there at the same time, so it was great, mate. Yeah.
Nice. So, mate, tell me, we've got a guest who's sitting online at the moment over in sunny Melbourne. Why don't you introduce who's coming on today for a chat?
Yeah, absolutely. Our special guest today is an absolute legend. His name is Richie Porta. Most people know Richie as the former WSL head judge. Just a little bit about Richie's officiating career and history. He first started judging internationally in 1996 at an international event in Lakey Peak in Indonesia. From there, he was the regional judge of Australia, and then in 2005 became the head judge of the Women's Pro Surfing Tour. In 2010, Richie then assumed position as head judge of the World Tour, and his last event was in 2017 at Pipeline. So welcome to Barrel Surf Podcast, Richie Porta.
Thanks, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Last comp, Pipeline, was it 2017? Now, I can't remember who won that year, but who won Pipe that year? Do you remember?
I don't know. They all blend into each other. It could have been... No, can't answer that one. Was
that Mick Fanning's world title year?
No, I don't think so. I've got a feeling... No, I don't have a feeling at all.
I'll get Mickey on the Google search while we see who won that, mate. But just listening to Mick speak then, Lakey Peak, was that your first sort of was that as a professional judge on a QS event? What event was it?
Yeah, because as you guys would know, back in the olden days, I used to compete lifelong Peninsula Surf Rider member down on the Mornington Peninsula in Vico, and you'd go in the state titles and they weren't paid judges then. It was like you'd have your heat, come in, get dressed, and then you judge the next heat, and that's how everyone pretty much started in Australia in that system. And I found that I didn't actually mind sitting there and judging. Like some guys just hated it. My best mate, he couldn't stand it. He was terrible at it, and so you start in that sort of zone, and then I went up to the Australian junior titles at Newcastle, it was actually. And then people were always looking, and I found myself looking further down the track when I became the head judge. You're always trying to find new talent. And after doing a few of those, and we had a pretty good pro-am sort of circuit going, and we'd have quite a few contests in Victoria, I got offered by Al Atkins because he was in charge of Surfing Australia back then, and Surfing Australia had the license to the ASP region. So he said, you want to come up and judge at this 4-star it was back then up at Lakey Peak? And it's just like, oh, hell yes. And so we had the first event there, first professional event was there, and I see the rickety old tower, I see photos. She's still up, still standing. But, that was my first one, and went from there. Just bit by bit, you start doing those smaller QSs, and then before you know it, you get to start traveling a little bit more outside your region. I used to go to Japan a lot and judge up there.
Yep.
And then you start, and away you go.
Classic. Hey, I think Mick's found out who won the 2017 Pipe Masters.
Yeah, it was Jeremy Flores. He won that one.
I thought it could have been Jeremy because he beat KP the year before or something. He won it twice because KP and Jeremy had a final, and that was 2 years earlier, and KP took the wrong wave. It was a two-wave set, and KP had priority. Took the wave with like a minute to go, and it shut down on him, and the wave behind was a cracker, and Jeremy got it. And you could see the anguish on KP as he's popped up and he's watched Jeremy flying out of this barrel. And it's just like, here you go, Jeremy, have a pipe masters. And that was his first one. Then, yes, 2017 was his second one where he was charging. And that, he definitely charges big waves. That guy still does. He's the coach I see for France this week over in Chopes, and a good choice.
Hey, you mentioned KP or Kieran Pero, if people don't know. Obviously, he was the commissioner there for a while. You got any good memories or any good stories about KP?
KP, are you allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can swear, no problem, mate.
I've got a couple that we were at NIAS doing a 5,000, was the O'Neill Jungle Pro or something. I don't know what it was called. And the bay was a bit small. So we walked up, there's a break. I can't remember what it's called. It's a couple of Ks up the beach to the right, and it's just this ledge that breaks into a dry ledge. So the idea is you get the wave, get barreled, flick off. KP, in his heat, decided to keep going and got flogged. And next minute, he's disappeared. And this is back in the day. There's no jet skis in the water. This is just as raw as it comes here. It's surviving. Anyway, we're sitting there on the beach judging, and Pez was actually the head judge then, and we're sitting there, and it's just like, KP hasn't popped up yet. And then another wave goes by, and he still hasn't popped up, and it's just like, oh my goodness me, we're watching a guy drown. Well, we can't see him because he didn't see him. Turns out he was under for the three waves, but he said he came up after the second one, got a breath, and then got pushed down under the ledge again. Oh. So there was that, and that sort of set the tone for my interactions with KP from then on. It was like, this guy, he's such a mild-mannered, nice fella, but he's batshit crazy with the surf. Like, we had a meeting in France on the CT all those years later when he was the commissioner, and Adriano de Souza piped up, and he's going, oh, fuck KP. All he ever wants to do is to send us out in 12-foot closeouts. He's mad. And it's just like, yeah, he's mad, but I'm right with him because I want to see you guys in 12-foot closeouts as well, So he and I worked really well together because we had the same sort of mindset when he was running surfing. Yeah. Was we want to put these guys and girls in the most challenging ways that we can get, because and we've seen now that they're moving away from trestles, thank goodness, finally. It's a fun wave, but you don't want a world title decided there. No. But he and I were like, let's put and find the heaviest waves we can to put the surfers in. And they're the best surfers in the world. And you'd see it over and over and over. It's just like, oh, I don't want to go. It's just like, well, you're going. And if KP says you're going, I'm going with him too. Let's go. You guys are out there. And they would show the results, because we only watch surfing to watch them do stuff that we can't do. We don't care what they're doing in 2-foot surf, because we can do that, Yeah. So, KP, absolute legend.
Hey, speaking of different waves, touched on the Olympics before. How much interest have you been having in the Olympics at Teopu? Have you do you understand what's happening as far as the judging setup is?
Well, they take, I could be wrong, but usually, or the last Olympics, they took a handful of WSL judges and then some ISA judges. And Rotamo was the head judge when the Tokyo Olympics was on last time. He chose not to go. I'm pretty sure Luli, the current head judge, I'm pretty sure he's going. I don't know. I saw a photo of him in Brazil. I don't have touch with, not in touch with these guys anymore. I don't even know half the crew that's on the panels these days. It's changed that much. Yeah. But I can guarantee our little mate Ratso, he'll be there doing the priority. I guarantee he'll be there. They can't get rid of him. But he's so good at that job. Like, he's the best at that job. excuse me, by far. And you want someone there because at Chopes, it happens so quickly. If you really watch, and the TV doesn't quite show it, but when you're there, it's a fine line between perching on the ledge to go and committing to it, or not committing and also blocking it. So you need someone that is right on their game, and that's Ratso. So I would imagine there'll be a few of the WSL judges, and the rest will be the ISA dudes.
Yeah. Hey, what I heard, I haven't actually read it, but I heard that they're not going to have a head judge. They're just going to have 5 judges with no head judge. What's your thoughts on that, if that's the case? I mean, I guess a couple of questions, your thoughts. And second question, how much influence, what sort of role should a head judge play in scoring waves?
Yeah, okay. That's a good question too. So back in the day when I started and, working under Pez and Renato, these guys, Fuchsie a bit, this is before the replay. So the head judge had a massive input because, you look at, we can go to where you guys are from, Margaret River, right? Back in the day when it was a QS, 4 guys in the water, pretty much everyone went left. Occasionally, went right, but now everyone goes right. One person in a contest goes left for 2 waves, whatever. But back when there's 4 guys in the water, it was split peaks all the time. So you've got 5 judges sitting there plus the head judge, and no matter how good you are, you're going to miss something, right? So what the head judge used to do, and Pez was unbelievable at that head judge role with watching the surf and analysing what was going on, because you needed help at certain times, because you would say, I missed that guy's turn. And the last thing any judge wants to do at any level is to guess a score, because if you guess the score and it's wrong, then all of a sudden the guy next to you thinks, well, he's got a 7, I've got a 5, I must have missed something, and it does that ripple effect. So that back in the day, the head judge was massive. 2014, when we changed over fully, I think it was 14, maybe 12, I don't know, one of those, as I say, it all blurs into another. But it was in 2014, I'm pretty sure Paul Speaker was still in charge of the WSL, and he and KP came to me one day and said, the surfers and we want the way you guys do things to change. It's just like, okay. So we've got all the replays, all the cameras. The TV effectively is the head judge. The head judge, the surfers don't want the head judge to go, well, you guys have got a 5, I think it's a 7. So people change to a 7. Like when I started, my wife used to say, how'd the boys go playing guess your score? Because that's effectively what the job of the head judge was my score is the right one, and the judges have to guess my score, and I'd be wrong at times as well. So now, what I used to do, and then pretend may have changed a little bit. I don't know what the process is, but I'm sure it's probably still pretty much the same, because you see the spreads and you see the results get a little bit wobbly. All I used to do was direct traffic and go, righto, everyone types in their score to start with the guy in red, and he's got a 7, and the guy in blue's already sitting there with a 7.2. So you say, let's look at blue's last wave as a replay. Then let's look at red's last wave, and the TV's showing you the difference in the scores, and then it's up to the judge to still keep your opinion, to then go, well, I reckon red's wave's better than blue. And then Mick might go, well, I reckon blue's wave's better than red. And that's the role of the head judge. Well, when I finished was just to direct traffic and not have any input into, I think it's a 6 or so. I was not allowed to say anything like that. So the 5 judges had complete control of your own scores, and that's probably what they're going to do when they're saying that the head judge, because Fernando was, let's not talk about Fernando, the head judge, someone has to dictate what to look at, because you can't have 5 guys going, and I used to have to say that to crew, and I still say it to crew now when I go up and do a lot of work for the Japanese guys and run some contests up there. It's just like, if I'm the head judge, I'm telling you which wave we're going to watch. Don't you, Micky Plowman, say, I want to see White's wave, and don't you say, I want to see, it's my job to dictate what you see. So someone's got to be in that box this week at Chopes saying, let's look at Red's last wave. Let's look at White's last wave, because otherwise you've got 5 guys there just completely lost.
Yeah.
Because if your score's out and then over and over and over and over, whereas if you watch the replay, you go, oh, yeah, okay, so I get that. The way he dug that rail in is that little bit more technical, and the view, Chopu, the camera view from the boat is crucial, because what you see straight on, you go, oh, there's a good big barrel. But often these days you see what's going on inside the barrel. You see guys riding the foam ball. You see, that famous heat with Kelly and John where Kelly goes up the face and does a turn to sort of avoid the foam ball inside this massive barrel, which was why he got that extra 0.1 over John on that wave. But someone has to tell you what's going on. So there can't be 5 guys and girls just sitting there scoring at their leisure. There has to be someone saying, let's check it out.
Yeah. Well, Rich, one thing that's awesome, mate. And one thing that probably people aren't aware, obviously when you came into the role, there was just prior to you coming into the role, there was no video replay. And it's something that, from my understanding, yourself, Dave Shipley of Hawaii and Pratamo actually spoke to the commission and actually wanted it, and had to negotiate. I think Rabbit might have been the in charge at that stage, and you guys kind of had to work out a deal so you could actually use that as a replay system type thing.
Yeah, we just said it's the sport's got to that level now that we need it fully, and we need not just when we wanted our own camera, whereas back before then you were just relying on broadcast cameras, and one up the beach and one down there, and you would just have to watch the TV, and different directors want to show different things. So you'd see a weird, funky angle, and we go, no, we need to see a camera. And we used to get the camera operator either in our room or in front of us or beside, but right there, so we've got the same view, so that we know exactly what we're looking at. And people ask me, oh, do you ever watch the replays in slow motion? It's just like, never. The only time we used to watch the replays in slow motion was things like when Adam Melling at the box got guillotined. We watched the wipeouts in slow motion just for the for the fun. But we said, and they've gone, yeah, I think that's a good idea. And we made it so much better having our own camera.
Yeah, definitely a place like obviously where I'd work with you each year is Margaret's, where the wave's obviously so far out to sea. And just little things like if a person's bogged a rail or been able to push through the rail, things like that, the replays really showed and can affect scores.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, it's so far out to sea. What you see in your vision is one thing, and then you'd watch it on the replay and you go, oh, wow, that's points different from what I saw in real life, because it was so far to sea. And I think one of the best things we also did at Margs was move the judging box off from way down towards the river mouth back up on the point. So you got such a better view. And, I was thinking about this yesterday. There's a couple of judging boxes that should move because you get a way better view. Like Bell's, you're too high. It's kind of hard because it's out to sea a bit. Jeffreys Bay, we always tried to get as low as we can, because the lower you get to the water level, that you can still see the wave looks so much better and hollow, whereas the higher you go, the flatter it looks, So Margs was I used to love the challenge of judging there, because it was so hard, because it was one so far out to sea, so much going on, but it was sort of one of those waves you go, yeah, this is, once you wrap your head around what you're trying to make the surfers do, the judging became quite easy, I thought.
It's interesting. You talk about Margs. Just going back to the Olympics at Chopes, Surfline, the forecast at the moment, it's not looking good. It's looking onshore. It's saying 2.5 meters. Hey, just curious, when you go to a wave like Chopes, does the head judge sort of talk about the conditions and what sort of the criteria is? Because obviously when it's going to be onshore, it's not going to have those perfect barrels that we all love to watch. What sort of discussions does happen in the booth when the conditions, like let's say onshore, and couple of still be quite big. What do you discuss, I guess, as far as
Yeah, well, see, the good thing about at that top level of surf contests, places like Chopes, I would only generally bring one fresh guy in a year to judge, so that your panel has been there many times before, so they know what's available. Because it's on TV, it looks one thing. When you're sitting there watching that place in live vision, it is it's just like, wow, these guys make this look so easy. This is so heavy. And you can't understand how heavy it is unless you're sitting in the channel or sitting out on the peak or even watching it from the tower, you know. So when on those smaller days, when some turns come into play, especially if it's a south swell because it breaks up the reef, if it's west, even if it's onshore, it's still going to barrel. So it's always just that barrel aspect of it. And over the years we had some days that were, if you're lucky, you got a barrel, but sometimes it was like 2 or 3 turns, because that's the other thing. Everyone thinks, it pumps every day. No, you can sit there. I sat there for 8 days once at 1 to 2 feet. It can go flat like anywhere for a long time. So the forecast, I've been seeing different things. I noticed Nathan Florence was talking about midweek a 2-day swell, and he thinks the winds might be all right. And then it's going to be 8 to 10 feet. And if it's 8 to 10 feet, God help those crew that don't surf it all the time, because anything over 5 to 6 feet, even over 5, anything over 4 feet, let's call it what it is. Once it gets past 4 feet, the ledge starts to really operate, and you've got to know your wave. And if it's got west in it, which I think there's a bit of west in it, when you take off there, when it's west, you think you're taking off into a closeout. So you'll see, I noticed one of the surfers this year, might have been Kanoa maybe, Jake lost his mind because he straightened out or flicked off because he didn't trust the bowl, because the bowl opens up. And they showed Jake, because Jake coaches him in the channel, losing it. So, and that's Kanoa, one of the best surfers in the world and chargers, and he didn't trust the West Bowl to do what it does. So it's a real daunting place when you take off and you look down that line. If it's got any west in it, you think, I'm going to just get destroyed here, but it actually holds it open. So the judges will sit there. They'll be there already, obviously. When do we start? In a couple of days. They'll already be there today, probably. They all know, or maybe some of the ISA guys, actually, there'll probably be if there's ISA guys there, there'll be guys there that have never been there, because it's only ever been the CT panel there since 96, when I went as the QS one, when Conan Kobe beat Conan. Sorry, Kobe. Conan, Kobe, that one. So they'll be watching it. You sit on the tower, you go out in the boat. I doubt they'll get to surf it with when we're there for the CT, you can surf. But with the Olympics, I think it's a pretty shut shop. They've got designated training all day long. Yeah. Maybe if you get out there at 6 a.m, they won't have it started, so that hopefully the ISA judges that are there get to paddle out and have it catch a couple, because you've got to be able to understand the power of the place to be able to judge it. It is next level. So, but they'll watch, and what they'll do is they just see what's available and what the surfers are generally doing, and then the non-existent head judge, whoever that is, will be explaining as like, this is a good barrel, that's not a good, so on and so forth.
Good, yeah. Hey, just one other question on the Olympics. Who's your gold medal predictions?
Well, it's hard, isn't it? Because if it's 10 foot, you've got Gabby, John, Carly, a few others like Jarl. If it's 3 foot, anyone. It's going to be, because once it gets to that size, you can even at the top level, you see guys that own it, and you see guys that are surviving. Gabrielle, incredible. John, incredible. Well, John was one of the first guys. Andy sort of did it back in the day, but John, for me, was one of the first guys that you could not take your eyes off the lineup when he took off on a wave, because back in the olden days, hit the hit the foam ball, over you go, generally. Actually, nearly everyone. And all of a sudden, things are happening and John's popping out. It's like, how did he make that wave? So John's incredible out there. But if it's 8 to 10 foot, I'm on the Gabby train well and truly, because he is, I call him a machine for a good reason. And he's had a few, a lot of issues, obviously, with personal stuff in the last couple of years, and he's still not where he should be in my eyes. Like he's in that top 3 of the world, no doubt. And if he's not in the finals, which I think he has to do pretty well at Fiji to make it, it's just like he should be, because he's so good.
Yeah, well said.
And with the women, you can't go past at any size really. Vaheen, the local girl who won, she's incredible out there.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing for the women's side of it is that terrible seeding that they've got. So you've got in round 1, you've got Molly, Caitlin and Tati all in the same heat. And then in the next heat, you've got 3 girls that aren't even on tour. It's just like, this is the problem with these make-believe contests that they have to do stuff to get to the Olympics. Like I used to argue with the guys and say, you don't see Novak Djokovic going to the Olympics and having to go and compete in some amateur tennis tournament in South America or Canada or somewhere for no prize money to get a seeding. It's just like, what is going on here? That's my rant. That's that, and I'll stop there, because I could go for hours on this, but I'll stop.
Listen, you're going to get me going now, because Sally Fitz won a gold medal in the ISA and still didn't qualify for the Olympics.
Yeah. So what's the point of that contest?
There's no. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I thought, I try not to, it does my head in too much, so I try and stay away from it. And the same as Joan Daru won last time for the Tokyo one and didn't get in, right? I think he won the same contest, and no, there's already the Frenchies are in, and so he didn't make it. But then Gabby wins, but I didn't know that he was on the thing, and then he's in it, and then they get the extra seeding because they won the team side thing, didn't they?
Yeah.
They won the team, so he gets the extra spot, right? But yeah, I don't move on.
It's a head fuck.
Yeah, I heard that came down to a heat too. If Australia won one more heat, they would have got the spot that Brazil got. So it was that close to the end. But Rich, what I wanted to ask you, obviously you and I go way back. I think we've known each other for close to 30 years. How did you originally start surfing? And one thing I know about you, mate, we've been talking about waves of consequence. You love charging. Also, you surf some huge Margarets, and I know you love Fiji and Tahiti and all these places. How did you go from a Victorian surfer to loving the juice? That's one question I had for you. How did it all start for you?
Yeah, well, I started surfing at Coffs Harbour. We used to go up there. My family, a lot of my family live in that area, and every summer or every school holidays, really, we're up there. So I started surfing as a little 7-year-old up at Arrawarra Main Beach there, but then started surfing, at those ages, because back then it was different too, because we weren't 2nd or 3rd generation surfers. We were like surfing really as a sport had obviously started way early, but not many guys did it till the late 50s and 60s. So I'm starting to surf at 69 or 70, 1970, whatever it was. So we didn't have, like you see now with the mums and dads, pushing the kids in and standing on the sand filming. So you're on your own pretty much. It was hard to surf back in Victoria on the weekends because we lived a bit from the surf. And then we moved down to Gunnamatta on the Mornington Peninsula, and we could walk through the paddocks. So we'd walk through the paddocks and just go surfing. That was from about 13. I started surfing in Vico. And if anyone's ever been to Gunnamatta, there's no way that you're not going to like strong, heavy waves, because as Maddie, my daughter, said to me when she was little, she said, we took her up to the Gold Coast once for a holiday, and she said, oh, the waves up here are so nice and creamy. Back home, you just turn around and the wave picks you up and hurls you to the beach. And it's just like, that's exactly right. And that's why, in my mind, Victorian surfers and WA surfers have always got on pretty well, because they're chasing the same kind of waves and understand that power ratio, whereas and I think that's kind of been a little bit detrimental to the amount of professional surfers that come out of Victoria and WA. Obviously, there's been some charges and some great professional surfers come out of both, but the wave does most of the work for surfers in Victoria and in WA, whereas where I'm now up on the Gold Coast, if the points aren't on, if you're on the beaches, you have to do the work. It's like you look how many good surfers come out of Florida and these sort of places because they're surfing to make the wave, whereas Vico, WA, South Oz, Tassie, these places, the wave does it for you. All you got to do is stand up and next thing you know, you're flying down the line. So I love waves, and, you know, being old now, it's hard to get motivated to surf knee-high, waist-high waves, whereas some of the crew just love that stuff. But yeah, it's harder also being old. So you slow down, the old arms don't work as well as they used to. But yeah, I always loved good solid waves, and that's just from surfing it from a teenage kid, you know.
You mentioned, Richie, the similarities between Victoria and Western Australian surfers, and obviously AFL is a big thing as well. We all love our footy. You're a mad Collingwood fan. How did that all start? And I believe for your whole life you've been an MCG member, so you've been able to see grand finals and things like that.
My grandfather put my name down the day I was born. I was lucky enough for that to be an MCC member, because you got to wait for people to die to get in. So it's been going forever. So I got in when I was 18 as a restricted member, and yeah, I played a lot of footy when I was young. It was like I tossed up at I was about 17 at the time, and I'd surfed on the Friday afternoon, and then Saturday morning I was playing footy for the local club, and it was a brilliant sunny May morning. I can still see it clear as day, and standing out in the field getting punched in the back of the head by this rather large guy as I'm going for a mark, and I knew the surf was pumping, and I'm standing there playing footy. I love footy, and it's just like, what am I doing? Got into the change rooms at the end of the game, put my boots in the bag, walked out, and never went back, and just said, I could be surfing pumping waves right now. So I took surfing well and truly, but still to spectate, love footy. And then Blake, my son, he played. He was really good. He was lucky enough to win a flag with the local club. And so I've had that lifelong obsession with it. My father loved football. My stepfather played for the Swans, or South Melbourne back then, and the Doggies. So our whole family's been in Victoria. Because Victoria, like today, it's 11 degrees. There's nothing to do in winter except watch or play sport. So everyone's doing it, right? So it's not like up north where if it's not the little nippers on the sand, there's not much sport going on. There's a bit of footy, but not much because everyone's too busy with the water. Whereas down where it's cold, you go winter, footy, and the cold water's cold. So have a quick surf, go and watch the footy. So yeah, my dad, the whole family was South Melbourne. I don't know how I ended up with Collingwood, but I can still see my dad taking me off to Victoria Park, which was back then the Collingwood's home ground, and watching Peter McKenna kick his 100th goal, and the crowd went off. And I've been a lifelong supporter and had, probably the best day of my life. I was at the MCG last year. It's just like, I've got to go down for this because obviously living on the Goldie now. So I can't miss this one. And watched them lose against Brisbane twice. I missed the year 2010 when they had the draw against St Kilda because we were working in France at the time. So I finally got my day of days, and it's been a worthwhile long journey of disappointment. But it was a cracker. So, and I've watched some other mugs beat us in the grand final a couple of years previous to that with the lucky kick right at the end from the boundary.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was I was actually amongst probably about 50 Collingwood supporters, and I was a single West Coast Eagle. I was watching that final in Bingen, actually in Bali, and that was memorable. Hey, listen, Collingwood deserved a premiership. They needed to get a win, finally.
Yeah.
I'm happy for the Collingwood supporters. And just a quick little bit of gossip, mate. Maybe Nathan Buckley could be the next West Coast Eagle coach. Word on the street.
He is a machine and phenomenal. And I used to love watching him play. I'm not sure how he's not like a Craig McRae, you know, the players all seem to love him. I don't think he coaches like that. Not that I know any. How would I know? But I remember seeing him once when he was playing for Collingwood and he kicked this amazing goal. And, you know, these days everyone has all the celebrations and that. He leant down, pulled up his socks and just ran back to the centre. And I thought, that's for me a mark of a champion, that he's not putting on a show. I get it's exhilarating and all that, but he's so cool, calm and collected that West Coast would do no harm in getting that guy to come, because I thought he did a magnificent job for the Pies. And yeah, it'd be good. It'd be a good choice, and sure.
Yeah, you mentioned Richie playing footy and getting punched in the back of the head. Is there any truth to the rumor that you were working at a Japanese event and there was an irate competitor and things could have got out of hand, but a contest director separated yourself and him? Is there any truth to that rumor?
Yeah, that happened, but that was all that stuff back then, and it's a whole different world now with fines and, you know, bits and this. And when I started, it was the surfers, and then the guys that were running the surfing and judging the surfing were also core surfers, just not quite good enough to be professional, but really interested in it. And she was rugged, you know. There was moments, and the surfers had a bit more leeway with coming and complaining to you, because once again, you know, this is before replay, so there's no evidence. It's like my word against your word. And one of the heats, the guy got a wave missed, and I ended up sticking up for. I was just there as a judge. I wasn't the head judge at that contest, but one of the guy's mates who got ripped off in his mind, he came up and started having a go, and I sort of jumped in. Anyway, the next morning we're at the contest, and he's come up to me and he's going, and carrying on. He's like, and he's my size, so I wasn't flustered or anything. And got to remember, I grew up in Frankston. She's a pretty rugged old town. And he's going, I wonder how much it is if you punch a judge. And I'm going, have a go, no worries, whatever. I'm not throwing the first punch. I'll get the sack, but give it your best shot, Tiger. and it started getting full on. It was just like, we're just about to go behind the sort of awnings to where no one could see, and the local Japanese contest director saw what was going on. He came running over, and but that was back then, and I had a few other moments, you know, and you understand, because I did a lot of not professional, but competed for all those years, for 30 years in amateur, and sometimes you come in, you're angry, and times that by 1,000 if you're on the CT and you've come in and you feel you've been hard done by, and then all your mates obviously tell that you were hard done by, whether you were or not. But you can understand the passion. I never really was that flustered by the arguments and stuff, because it's just like, no, vent it out. And I used to sometimes clear the room, or often I'd clear the room and let them go. And, you know, there were moments that I knew were coming, and I would kick everyone else out so that the person could have a real red hot go, and I wasn't running off to Renats or Jesse or KP and saying, oh, he said this or he said that. It's just like, yeah, no worries. Then let's move on, and away we go next time. So, but it's a bit different now, you know, because there's so many cameras. Everyone's got a camera and everyone's worried about what someone else is doing. So it's hard for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And this year, I was mentioning to Tbone offline, in the judging tower this year's in Margaret's and all the CT events, they've got a GoPro. So the judging tower's filmed the entire time. There's also an audio speaker. So everything that's spoken about between the judges or the head judge or anything is all recorded. And the surfers now have the ability to not only go back and watch the replay of the heat, but they can also watch what the judges were doing and saying during their heat. So yeah, it's really stepped up to another level of professionalism.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary. Because we tried it a couple of times. They wanted to put the camera in the judge's room to show on the broadcast, and they did that once or twice, and they realised how boring it was, and they stopped doing it. And then I get it with the Apple show or whatever I don't know, what was the name of the TV show they did, which they've given the flick to now.
Take a break.
It's not necessary. It's not that much of a thing that you have to record or vision to prove your point, because at the end of the day, the rule states unless something was missed, no matter what you think your score was or wasn't, there's no recourse for you. If you lost and you definitely got ripped off, it's bad luck.
Yeah.
So it's a pointless thing, and all it does is open the door for people that, and we used to get them on the CT, it'd be the same crew that would come a lot of the time. And it's just like all that does is open the door for them to come and complain again because they've lost a small heat. And in surfing, which is such a subjective sport, I'd be sitting there sometimes and go, regardless of what happens right now, we're screwed, because I know there's going to be a 3-2 call on this last wave. The guy's chasing at 8. He's got scores. He's going to get scores. As you're watching the wave, I know the scores are going to go 7-8 to 8-5, whatever. And 2 guys are going to say no, or 3 guys are going to say no, and 2 guys are going to say yes. And he might lose by 0.01%, so a thousandth of a point. And who knows who wins? Like that was the ones where I used to say, you throw the blanket over the pair of them, and who manages to crawl out is the winner. And so you're screwed either way. And it's like that. It's just like, well, that's the nature of the sport, mate. You've lost by the narrowest margin. What can you do?
Yeah, I remember one heat, just to jump in, that you referred to. It's probably one of the most heavy. I remember speaking to a few of the judges that were on this heat. There was a heat going back, Mick Fanning and Yaden Nichols at Pipe.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Pipe is pumping, and Fanning's last wave was phenomenal. The sandbar did it all that, and he gets it. And I think he was chasing a high 9, and you knew he'd either just got it and just missed it. And I think it was one of those 3-2 decisions you're talking about, and it was so heavy because the world title came down to that from memory on that heat.
Yeah, the Yaden had a 9-2 as his backup. I can't remember what the top waves were. Maybe they both had a 10. I don't know. Anyway, Mick was chasing a 9-3 from memory, and the surf's 8-10 foot, perfect pipeline. Mick wins the heat, wins the world title, and Yaden's off tour. Yaden wins the heat, he stays on tour. And I'm sitting there watching this wave happen. And Mick had done it the heat before in his quarter against Hopgood as well. He got a wave right at the end. But this one was closer because watching the vision, Yaden dropped and ran, and they were really good at that at Pipe. Like they hold and then they grab their rail and they straighten in the barrel. Mick's taken off and he's done this amazing bottom turn. If you look at the picture, he's in by one fin's holding in. You can see the whole bottom of the board. And then the barrels are pretty much the same. And so for me, the bottom turn, which sort of sounds a bit weird being Pipe, but the bottom turn was just that tiny bit more crucial than the drop and run, because once again, they all can do the drop and run. Those guys, they're incredible out there, right? Anyway, so the wave happens. It's right at the end. They mix on the sand, and I'm looking at them because I got the little screen in front of me. I see the 5 scores, and I'm going, oh boy, oh boy, and it's the towers that they just built a scaffold with tents sort of around it, and there's a doorway, and I look over there and there's about 3 people at the door watching, and I'm going through the motions. It's like, righto, let's watch Yaden's wave, let's watch Mick's wave, let's watch Yaden's wave, let's watch Mick's wave. And one judge ended up keeping it under, and the other 4 judges went Mick's over Yaden, and he ended up with a 9-6. But this took some time because it was you've got to visualize a world title on this score. The easiest thing for those 5 judges to do was to not give the score, and then Kelly had to win the contest to win the world title. Kelly ended up winning the contest, but who knows if he would have, with the pressure that would have been on him to win. It doesn't matter at that point. But this took about 4 minutes, I reckon. And bit by bit, there's another person at the door. By the end, there's like 10 people. They're all barging in because everyone's, what's going on? What's going on? It's just like they got a world title that's going on right now. Get lost. Anyway, no one spoke. One of the judges asked me one question, which I answered. And other than that, everyone sat there and we watched them all a few times. I didn't I didn't push anything. No one, a couple of guys pushed their scores up a little bit, but right off the bat, the 4 guys had the score and one didn't, and the one that didn't kept his score for not giving it. Anyway, and then you see the vision of, he gets a 9-6, wins a world title. Yaden's off tour, unfortunately for Yaden, never managed to get back on. And the Kelly camp was seething. They dragged me in next door to go straight on to the broadcast to explain it, which is fair enough. And I made a point of that, which is why they brought me back as that commentator, the judging rules thing. Because I said, the problem with our sport is when stuff happens, the commentators can talk about it, but if you don't have someone explaining it officially, the world goes mad, right? And so I said, anything that happens, drop in, score, bring the camera in. So you'd see often the camera would come in. I'd say to Pratamo or Davey, I've got to do this, you do that. And I'd explain what had happened right there and then. So then people will settle down. They may not agree, but they've had the explanation. So they've dragged me in and said, in the very next heat, I said, righto, world titles, you guys take care of this. I'll be next door getting grilled. So they're doing the split screen, and I was sitting next to Shane Dorian, best mate of Kelly, and you could feel the anger just seething out of his body towards me. He hated me he's hated no one right at that moment. But to me, to this day, that was one of those moments where it's so close, and I sort of admire the judges for sticking to their guns, because the hardest thing to do, like I said, is to give that score. The easiest thing for those 5 guys to do is to not give the score, and then it's still in the hands of the gods as to what happens. But that was the heaviest decision I ever was involved with, for sure.
Oh, that's a crazy story. I was just thinking about how you were talking about the days before video replay, and obviously now there's so much technology for the judges to analyze all these heats. Hey, just on that, you talk about that whole experience that the judges had. What sort of training or what's the pathway for some of these judges to come from like the board riders level up to CT? How do they get there? Is there some sort of structured sort of pathway?
Well, there's a few, right? Like I'll give the Australian version, which is I'll give you my version. Local board club, state rounds, pro juniors, national Australian titles back then, the low rank QS, local QSs that we have, the 1000s and stuff, then into those 3000s, then you start doing those, if you're an Australian guy, you're off to Krui and Nias to do the 5000s, Taiwan, whatever, and then you go into the Challenger Series, and then you're in the CT. That's the long road, because you're doing it that way. The short road is you're a CT surfer, you finish your career, then you're off. We put in place a rule years ago, maybe Pez put this one in, but I agreed with it. You finish your CT career, you're off tour for a year, and then we can bring you on as the high-ranked QSs and the Challenger, and you're into, then if you show that you can do it, you're then into the CT. So, we've got the likes of Ben Dunn, Drew Courtney used to judge a bit. He still judges a little bit, but and they've got a few, like Lily, for instance, the head judge now, he was on that Brazilian circuit, which is a really strong circuit domestically. So you want those guys, because it doesn't have to be, because we tried a lot of professional surfers as judges and they were terrible. But the sport gets more credibility when you have ex-surfers. It's like any sport. And it's like, the coaching, we're talking about the coaches in AFL. It's like if you're an ex-player, you're on top of the pop straight away versus the guy who may be a lifelong coach. The best judges that I've seen over the years, none of them were CT surfers, but they were either junior pro surfers or people like myself that had a long amateur career but have that capability. Like you go back and you look at Pez, probably the best judge I ever saw.
Very happy for people.
His ability to slot waves in their order of where they belong was really good. Then I think the next one for me was Renato, who's now the tour rep. He had this photographic memory that, the surfers would come and ask something and he'd be able to rattle off. This is before video replay, remember? He'd be able to rattle off what they exactly did yesterday, And then the third best judge, I think, for me was probably Pratama. And he came through that. He was a junior professional surfer in the Australian leg. And then he got targeted early on and said, we're looking for a new Australian judge. And he took that role, went from pro juniors straight into the high QSs and the CTs, and he got managed that way. So that's the Australian version. The other versions are more around the world, the Europe and American ones are similar sort of things. You start on those low pro juniors sort of things and then work your way up. The ISA guys, they do a course, the judging course, which is good for the beginners. I'm doing these seminars now, which is a whole different thing. But Elroy, Glenn Elliott has this program where, they sit in the classroom and they discuss all that basic judging 101 stuff. And for the ISA ones now and the Surfing Australia ones, you pretty much have to do that course. Whereas back, I never did a course. I just started judging local stuff and learnt as you go, like any trade.
Yeah. Hey, so when was that period, like that transition in your life where you actually could make, like you realised you could make a living out of judging or being in the surfing industry? When did that all happen for you, when you realised you can make money out of this? And
yeah, well, we went from, I had a little period away from competitions for a little bit and then came back into them a couple of years, maybe 2 years. I didn't compete when I was around 21, maybe 22, something like that. Can't remember, too old. But I came back in and we were running. They said, can you come and judge? It was a state round at Phillip Island and they gave us a Quicksilver jacket for judging in this time of the year at Phillip Island. I was like, that's nice of you. I've been frozen for 2 days. Anyway, and then they said, okay, we can't just give them clothing, so let's start paying them. And so I did it for weekend jobs for years. I was working for a company doing indoor landscaping and stuff, and bit by bit, more weekends turned into 4-day contests, and then all of a sudden, you had to go into state for a week, and it got to a point where I never envisaged being full-time. It was just the weekend and stuff, and just to do extra money like you all do. It was like a good way. I thought, I get a surf after the contest, I get to earn some money, and I'm enjoying versus going and working at a bar or whatever, So it started like that, and then the company I was working for said, you're spending almost more time away than you are here. What are you going to do? And it's like, well, I've got 2 options here. Stay with you or go and try this and go out on my own and do my own. So I went out on my own doing my own landscaping work, with working towards getting as many events as I could, and just fell into it bit by bit by bit. The events were getting more and more and more. And because I found that I could do them pretty good or pretty well, they kept coming, and then it just went from there, So I never once, even when I was doing those weekend works, and we did a lot of weekend works. We had a lot of contests in Victoria back in those days, and we had a really good panel of guys. Mick, a few of those boys, and we used to. It was enjoyable because the fun that you used to have hanging out with these guys on the weekends was incredible. And at that stage, I never thought, one day I'm going to be in charge of the World Professional Surfing Tour. I was just happy to go and do my weekends, And the day they offered me the head judge role, it's just like, oh wow, okay, I guess. So yeah, it's a really good. It's a lot better now if you're good at it, because the money's so much better. We didn't make a lot out of it then, but the guys now at the CT level, they make a good living out of it. Whereas before, I used to be amazed that some of the crew didn't have a second job. So I thought, how can you survive on what we're earning? Whereas now you don't. The main tribe definitely don't need a second job.
Yeah, Yeah, one thing I commented when I was doing a little think about you before we coming here today, was your ability at events to obviously be extremely professional when the event was on, but you also made the most of wherever you were and had a good time and all that. You had a really good balance. That's what I thought of working really professional thing. Is that something you made a note of? Okay, I'm in this beautiful place. I'm going to go on this tour or make the most of it while I'm here.
I used to lose my mind, especially when I was the head judge, at some of the complaints from the guys and girls when we were out and about. It's like, oh, this is not good, or the food, it's just like, have a good look. My brother-in-law's a tradies. My best mate's a tradie. My wife, when I was the head judge, at that time, she's retired now from that, but she was a diplomat and she was involved in people smuggling. So I would go on tour and go and, yes, be professional at work, but enjoy all the bits of where you're at, meeting new people, seeing new things, surfing different ways, eating amazing food, getting on the tins with the boys when the contests, all these things. And it's just like, have a look around, everyone that's here. We're taking the piss in life right now. This is incredible, because I can show you what the other side of it is. And even, when I was doing my landscaping work, I'd come back from an event and I'd be moving 2 meters of soil with a wheelbarrow for the day. And it's just like, yesterday I was in Fiji on a boat surfing. So it's an incredible lifestyle. And I tease the boys now. I say, oh, where's your next holiday? Because my brother-in-law, he used to ask me all the time and say, where's your holiday this week at 2? And it's work, but it's like, come on. This is a lifestyle that gets paid really well. You've got to obviously be professional, but enjoy yourself, because before you know it, this ride's over and you go back to the normality of life when you're doing the same day in, day out, day in, day out. And it used to, like I say, it used to upset me a little bit that some crew didn't appreciate exactly what they had in front of them. Like, outside of the surfers, we had the next best job in the world. And because you get to surf, when we used to go to Fiji for 3 weeks, you'd surfing the 3 weeks, or when we were in Hawaii for the Triple Crown, it was 6 weeks and we had 12 days of work out of those 6 weeks. So you gotta get into it. And I used to say to the crew, especially the young crew coming up, I say, when someone says, do you want to do blah, 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 say yes. Because if you say no, you're sitting in your hotel room by yourself. So say yes to everything and enjoy it, because it's going to stop at some point.
Yeah, good point. Hey, I just lost my train of thought. You said you're not working for the WSL. What are you doing now? You mentioned that.
I'm doing 2 things. We've started our company Chafe Mate, which is a skin wax that prevents surf and sports rash, we've found out, which the backstory on that is we're down at Fingal surfing. I surfed down there with my mate Harry at the Harrisons. Piper and Marlon's dad's been my best mate my whole life. So we hang out with, he lives on the beach at Fingal there, got a house. So we sit there because, it's that or D-Bar most days, and D-Bar's a wall of people, whereas Fingal, it's no worries. And the surf was pumping, and Piper Harrison, she's turned up. And my wife, Lisa, said, oh, why aren't you out in the water? And she lifted up her arm and she said, oh, Snapper's been pumping all week and I've paddled it raw. So, when you and it was red raw. It was like, oh, that looks so sore. Anyway, on the way home, Lisa said, what do you use for that stuff? And I've just gone, oh, everything that you possibly can, Vaseline, paw, anything. I've used moisturiser over the years, because even back when the wetsuits weren't good rubber, anyway, so she's gone, okay. And over a period of a few months, we just sort of trialled and errored a few formulas and came up with this product that works so well because it's the wax that sticks on. And living at Cooley, I trialled it doing the walk from Kira up to Snapper. You get out, do a lap, walk back, and with wet boardies, and it doesn't take you long to start walking like that cowboy trying to pull your shorts out. Excuse me. So I was putting it on the seams of my boardies. After 3 hours of surfing, I was just still walking with pillows in between my thighs going, oh, this stuff works. And then we took it to the Ments on the boat trip, and all the boys loved it there. So it's like, yeah, this is a real thing. So we're selling that. You know, we've got it in a few shops, and it's overseas in a few different countries because it works really well, and it's all natural, all organic, all the right things. And so we're developing that. We've got a warehouse we're punching it out of in Coolangatta. And then when I'm not doing that, in between that, I'm now back doing some of these judging seminars. That's why I'm in Vico now. As I was saying, I've got to go down and do one for the malediction longboards because this afternoon. So I do them for board clubs, but I also do them for, you know, junior surfers that want to know how to get to that CT level because, you know, you think you've been involved in professional surfing for 40 years. You've got all this knowledge stored in here on what to do and how to get there. So it's like it's been quite good fun to explain to crew how things work. And you talk to all the board clubs, and every board club's pretty much got the same problems when it comes to running their club contests. You know, you got the old dogs who are set in their ways and biased on certain things. You've got the young guys that are trying to learn how to judge but don't know. So I try to fix all these little problems to make the local board clubs be able to run their club events so much better. So I go in, do a seminar, you know, I explain all the bits and bobs on how to score and what you're looking for. And then the next day, I actually head judge their local board club because I remove that concept of biasness, which if the board club's got a local one or two guys that head judge and I hear the same things, it's just like, oh, of course little Jimmy got through because his dad's the head judge or his dad's the mate of the head judge. It's the same, doesn't matter where you go, it's the same program over and over. So I come in and explain how to set the scale and how to push open the scale and the separation of divisions. And, you know, I was up at Coffs doing one the other month and all were there judging all day. And this one of the young kids, who's probably 13 or so, he came down for his first little spot of judging and he's gone, this kid got a wave and he's gone, that's got to be the best wave of the day. And I said, why is that? He said, well, he went the longest. And this is like, well, that's why I'm here, to explain to you. So those sort of things, and it's been quite good because you're imparting this knowledge that you've got and make things better. And the crew in Japan bring me up every few months to do another one up there. So I go and head judge and teach their judges because they're really got this. They've got these amazing young surfers, but they kind of struggle a little bit getting into that. They get them on the Challenger series, but they can't seem to get onto the CT. You know, it's close, but so I'm doing a lot of work with those guys at the moment and just trying to make things better for them. But yeah, chafe mate and judging seminars is my thing, which is good because I also really love the chafe mate brand because we decided to come back to what I grew up with, which was core surfing for surfers and not beige professional everything that surfing is now, but a little bit more rugged, a little bit more how you going, and that's why we call it chafe mate. You know, and because all I want to do is to stay in the surf as long as you can, and when you're in those warm waters or your wetsuit or whatever, or doing the walk back up to Snapper, you want to be able to make yourself as comfortable as possible. So yeah, it's life's good at the minute for sure.
I can relate to how you're saying like wearing boardies and walking back up the point when they're wet, especially in Indo. It seems like your shorts never get dry. I can relate to the rash there and also under the arms. So it sounds like chafe mate, you can pretty much apply it to any of those areas of your body, right? Like
external use only. But yeah, and we've also found that marathon runners, you know, basically wherever there's sweat or moisture and friction, because the marathon runners, I didn't know that, but they rub their shirt that much that their nipples bleed. So these guys are putting it there, you know, that we've had hikers. We had a bunch of crew use it on the Kokoda Trail. They said it was a game changer because you imagine there you're sweating, rubbing and wet. And they ran out and they were fighting over the last bit of the tins that we sent with them. But yeah, so it's a really good thing to be able to do your sport for as long as you want, no matter what sport it is, really. And some of the footy players have been using it as well because they get it in the thighs, that inner thigh with the rubbing and the sweat. So yeah, it's a not just what started out just for surfing solely, and we found just by complete error or by complete accident that other sports love it as well.
Awesome. Hey, Rich, that's unreal. One question I really want to ask you was one unique thing probably when you started judging, you never thought you'd judge an event in a pool. I know you were part of the Kelly Slater when those events started. How was it like, obviously judging, but I believe you got to surf the wave itself?
Yeah, I've surfed in the the urban surf ones, and and they're all really good fun. And then you get to the Kelly one, and once again, the TV doesn't really do it justice by how far the thing goes for you. You stand up one end of that lagoon, and the wave starts. It's 700 meters or something. It's ridiculous. Up, they're little dots taking off, and I thought it was going to be really, really hard to judge it because I went in unseeing and only saw the vision that we all saw before we got there. This is back, in the day when we did that founders event and all that sort of stuff. We found the waves are actually a little bit different. Each wave, it's not exactly the same, just whether it's the water flow or whatever it is. You would think it's exact. So I found it a lot easier to judge than I thought it was going to be. When they went into the CT, because I was only there for those first 2 years, or 1 year even. No, 1 year, I only went once. And I said, here's your chance of doing a split screen because it's the same. It's as much as I say it's not the same, it's the same, right? So I wanted them to do a split screen for those scores that are close, and so you can't make an error because you're watching both turn, and you can analyze the difference. Whereas watching one after the other, you can't get a true indication, which is where. And they said, no. And they show it on the replay split screen all the time. Anyway, incredible wave. It is incredible. And then after that day of contest that we had, we got a slot. Pratamo, myself, there's a few others, there was 2 Brazilian guys that were looking at building one down in Brazil. Taylor Knox was in there as well. Anyway, there were 5 or 6 of us in for the hour, and I found just how it happened was because you'd get a wave and you could get dragged back up to go on your forehand again, or you could sit up the other end and take turns. But I sat at the end of the very first section after my first wave because Taylor was trying all this amazing stuff and falling, and you're sitting there going, fall. And you fall and you just go, yes. And you're spinning away, you go again. And I'm spraying Pratamo as I'm going past. I hate you right now. You got another wave, you prick. I'm going, well, I'm your boss. I'm allowed to. And but yeah, to surf it was incredible. The TV, same thing. The TV, when you see it, dead boring to run a contest on, after they did it once, it's like, don't do that again, no need. Because it's just like, it doesn't allow some of the other ones I've seen with the big airs. You want the ones that they can do airs in because once again, we go back to, we want to see surfers do stuff that you can't really do. And sitting in a 3-foot barrel, we can all do that. We can all do re-entries, we can all do cutbacks, we can all do whatever, but we may not be able to do 10-foot airs, whatever it is. So to see a competition in it over and over and over, you can just feel everyone just sliding off the side of the screen. But to surf it, oh my goodness me, it was I was feel so lucky to be able to get a few waves. So I think it's like $10,000 an hour for a session, something like that to cost if you go with your mates, and it's only once every 3 minutes, right? Because they've got to wait for the water to disperse. So I'm not sure the new one they've built in Abu Dhabi or whatever, if that's got a quicker turnaround, if they could turn, because it's just like the snow plow that goes up and down. If you could work out a way to make the water settle, you could spin that around every 15 seconds if the water's still. They have to wait for the water to settle, which is why it used to take 3.5 minutes. But incredible to surf. I'm glad I got to surf it for sure.
Rich, we've probably let you go soon, mate, because you've probably got to go do your seminar this afternoon. Thanks for coming on Barrel Surf Podcast. It's been awesome to hear some of your stories. Mick, you got any?
There's just a couple last ones, Rich. Just a couple last minute questions. I'm just filling in for Adsy today. He always has a series of questions he always wants to ask the guests. So, the best surf trip you've ever done, your best tube you've ever had in your life, and your worst wipeout. And obviously you've got a judging history, so I want to ask you the best contest or heat you think you've ever been involved in. So
so the best surf trip, it's hard because they're so varied, right? This is going to sound really weird because I'll put my surf trips into surf contests. Obviously Fiji, amazing. Tahiti, amazing. We used to stay on the water there as well. Hawaii was good. I used to live in a little cabin on the beach at Val's Reef at sunset. But I used to get the most pleasure on my yearly trips, probably to Portugal, to Peniche, not so much for Super Tubos, that's whatever, but the waves that are around there, you could go and find your own space. And we'd be coming off, you got high pressure stakes because at that time of the year, lose the heat, you're off tour. Win the heat, you're on tour. So there was a lot of, I used to call it the tantrum month with France and then Peniche. So you'd want to go and find your own space and just regroup. So I used to get a lot of really, really good surfs in that area. So I used to love Peniche and also I loved them all. Let's be honest. They're all cool. Everywhere was cool. J Bay was amazing. The best barrel, I would say, so many. I would say Honolulu Bay. When we used to run the women at Honolulu Bay, that wave is one of the best right-handers in the world. There's no doubt. It's an incredible wave. Once again, the vision looks good when you see it on the TV, but when you're out there, it is such a good wave. I'd say probably there. Had some good ones at Nias over the years, when we used to run the contest at the Maldives, we had one or two sessions out at Sultan's where you get a barrel I'd run for 30, 40, 50 metres in the barrel. That was pretty good. Wow. The best heat, I think probably Kelly and John in that quarterfinal or semi, whichever one it was, where they had a tie break and it would have gone the other way if John's wave had been 2 minutes earlier than Kelly's, not right behind it, because John would have got a 10, Kelly would have got a 10, and then it wouldn't have been a split, a tie break, where it was, because Kelly got the wave right after him. He gets the 10, John gets the 9-9, even though two judges, I think, gave John, they gave him both 10. That one, and obviously the most intense one, as we spoke about earlier, the Mick and Yaden one, that was by far the most intense moment in my career. And what was your last one?
Your worst wipeout. Where's your
probably Sunset. Because and it wasn't so much a wipeout, it was getting caught inside on a west bowl with a 12-foot west bowl man pretty much on top of me. That was down to the bottom, snap the board, do all the bits and bobs that and then you got to come in. Actually had a pretty bad wipeout last year in the Mentawais at HT's, got hit smack, bang right in the head with my board. So, yeah, as surfers, we always have wipeouts, that had some good ones out at North Point too, surprise. So, yeah, but I would say that one at Sunset was the only time in my life I thought I could be in a bit of strife here, because when I finally did come up, there was the next wave right there, looking straight up, going, oh, here we go again. But now I've got no board whatsoever, so you're swimming. And it's incredible the difference between swimming in that impact zone without something to climb up. You climb up your leash to grab hold of your board, whatever. But when you got nothing, you're really freestyling. And I take my hat off to those guys that surf those big waves all the time. It's just like you guys are dead set crazy, even with your vests.
Mate, there's not many ways that I don't think that you haven't surfed around the world. You sound like you've covered a lot of waves in your time.
Covered a lot, but there's still so many to go, right? Like but yeah, with that, and that was the joy of, we were talking about the job before. It's just like people pay $400, $500, $600, $700, whatever, $100 a day to surf this, and we're getting paid to surf it. Come on.
Yeah,
we got the best job ever. And excuse me, the amount of surfs that we used to get in Fiji, in all these places, in Hawaii, France, J Bay, there's so many waves. And even in Australia, we used to love Micky would take us up and down the coast to surf all the waves around there. So you're surfing all these waves that people pay a lot of money to go and enjoy. And yet we were there taking the piss, going, yeah, no work today, let's go and surf. Yes, please. So, yeah, had a great life. And I remember just quickly once we're driving up in England to a contest, and I was with Matt Wilson, and he used to be the ASP/WSL manager, one of the guys. And we were talking about it, and I said, look, Matt, there comes a time in every sport administrator's life, especially in a judge's, when whether it's you or Brody or someone gives me a tap on the shoulder and says, thanks, Rich, see you later. And I said, that's sport, and it has to be that way. Pez used to say, as a head judge, you've got 5 to 10 years, and then you're out. He took 12 years, but the sport demands that you have that progression through. And I did 8 years at that senior role, but the sport has to progress. So I said to Matt that day, whoever taps me and tells me to beat it, I'll walk away from this sport happy, because I know what we've got here and what the life has been. And I'm not going to be one of those guys. There's a couple of them out there so bitter and angry at the whole thing. It's just like, no, you take what you got out of it and move on into your next stage of life, because we're too old to be running events and stuff for the elite in the world when it's a young man and young woman sport. As we get older, we still surf, obviously, till the day we drop down. But at that level, you got to be young and active and in it. And so, I was wrapped with what I got out of it and happily moved on.
Hey, just one of my last questions to you. During your time with the WSL, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice, and I think I got this without actual advice, but I watched him operate all those years, was Renato Hickel, who is the tour rep, commissioner, whatever they call him these days. Sorry, excuse me. But the best bit of advice, and that was just from observation, is always listen before you speak. So the minute you open your mouth and say something, you're locked in without knowing the full story. So always listen first before you give your opinion, because if your opinion's wrong and you've already said it, you've said it. So sit back. And Renato was master of it. He would let the person, whoever he's talking to, or a group of people talk, and then he'd say, okay, but, and then give his opinion. So I think that is crucial in not just surfing, but in all aspects of life, is to listen first and then speak.
Yeah, I think that's what the wife tells me just about every second day, mate.
Yeah, well, that's standard. And you miss part B of that is listen and then just keep listening.
Yeah, and he's a unique dude, isn't he, Renato? Because he can speak fluently 4 different languages. So you hear him on the phone, and he's be talking Portuguese to Brazilian guys, and then different languages to different competitors in his current role. So he's an amazing guy. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, he is. And we all have all the stories about him, and he's been on tour since the 70s. It feels like. I know he's not that old, but he feels that old. And the amount of times I used to watch him out and about and, g'day, darling, how are you going? And if you haven't seen him, just visualize a slightly scrawnier Arnold Schwarzenegger, and with the accent as well. He's an incredible human for sure.
Hey, lastly, Rich, for our listeners out there, mate, that want to get hold of some chafe, mate, how do they do so? How do
Yeah, just go online. It's there, chafemate.com. We've got a website there, and you can put orders in online. There's shops up and down, stockists in New South Wales, Victoria, New Zealand, Bali, France, California, probably missing a few, Japan. So, but yeah, if you just basically order it, and if you mention this podcast, we'll get one for you, one for a mate. We'll toss an extra one in for free if you put in that you heard about it on this podcast.
Yeah, is there like a coupon that people can, when they order it online, like put in a coupon? Maybe we could work that out offline.
Yeah, I can. I got to get the chief onto that. She's in charge of all that.
No worries.
If on the code, what we've been using, I think, is if you put in Porta, P-I-T-A, I think that's been working. But I'm talking off the top of my head now because I'm the guy that knows the people to get it in the stores. She's the business.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely find a code, and you guys can put it out on your next one. No worries.
Nice.
Thanks, Richie, too. I know all the Barrel podcast guys, we got one, and I just been up
thanks,
north for
mate.
a month, and absolutely no issues. Really good stuff. So thanks, mate. Really appreciate it.
Oh, cool.
All right, Richie. Thanks for coming on, mate. Really enjoyed having you on, and all the best.
Hang on. Wait. What about Mr. Nice? You, Steve Irwin, Clive. You made me think about that.
Good about that.
Yeah. Have you got any? So you obviously are aware of the Steve Irwin salute for something positive and good going on at the moment. Have you got anything, Richie?
Well, what about? I'll go the negative one first.
Yeah, the Clive Palmer.
Oh, the Clive Palmer Cup. Go for it, mate.
Poor old Clive. Yeah, and this is. I thought about this. There's obviously a lot of things that happen, but I'm going to use this platform to educate some of the older crew. For this year, I got diagnosed with prostate cancer, got my prostate removed, right? I only didn't have any symptoms, nothing like that, but my doctor's gnarly. You go to my doctor and it's like when you're back at school off to the headmaster's office, and she said, oh, you didn't follow up on your blood test last year, so she sent me back. Anyway, long story short, after getting my blood test, off I go and get the prostate out. The reason I say that, and I'm all good now, is I had no symptoms, and as an older guy, you wouldn't know. So I encourage any guy over 40, 45, whatever they say, is to, when you're at your doctor's, ask for that PSA test, just as you get your cholesterol tested, get your PSA. So gone are the days, where you got to get the finger up and it's all a blood test. But one of the old boys on the peninsula, he didn't, because you don't know you've got it. He didn't know, and he got finally diagnosed 5 months later. They're off to his funeral, So you definitely don't want to have something like that happen for the simple sake of a blood test, because life goes on, but way better than if you don't, So if you're thinking about it, you're going, oh, maybe I should get it done, because they say that most old guys die with it, not from it. But if you don't know that you've got it and it gets out of that prostate and starts spreading, then you're screwed. So I say that was a bad thing, but now it's cool. But I say that only for the sake of educating some old guy I don't go to the doctors, like, well, maybe, just like it'd be terrible to die from a melanoma because you didn't get your skin checked. And this is another way that you don't want to pop off.
No,
So that's my Clive Palmer for you.
Oh, that's a great Clive, mate. Yeah, great Clive. Good advice if anyone's listening.
And my Steve Irwin is both the juniors, Blake and Maddie, both got married this year. Maddie and Meeks, they ran away and went off to Canada in the snow, and we got the photos, and that was incredible to see. And then we've just come back from Mexico with Blake, my eldest boy, or my only boy, let's be the boy, and Alexandra. They got married in Mexico, and so it's incredible, Mick. You've known those kids since they were tiny little kids, and they grow so quick, and now they're all hitched and off they go for their own journeys, So that this year's been phenomenal in regards that you watch your kids grow up and become adults, and now they're married and ready to start their own journeys, So that's that. This year, in regards to that, it's been incredible.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, congratulations.
So both your kids got married overseas?
The Maddie, she's the tighter one. She's the saver. She's gone, no, we want to go and do it ourselves, and we'll send you the photos. And Blake and Alexandra, the opposite, they live on the apartment on the beach at Kira, with all those bells and whistles. They go, let's not go to Bali like every other Australian. Let's go to Mexico, and you can all come and spend an absolute fortune coming to our wedding. But it was such a good, some of their mates came, some of our friends came, my sister and her husband came, and we had a fantastic time. So, yeah, it was destination weddings for both of them. Yep. And now they're done, we can save some more money on ourselves now. You don't have to pay for them to do anything else. But, yeah, it was a great – both of them were fantastic. And yeah, like I was saying, it's just incredible to think they were 2 years old yesterday. And now they're both 30-something and married.
Oh, yeah, you just blink your eyes.
That's cool.
Between Mick and I, we've got 2 girls each, haven't we?
Yep,
we got a few weddings to save up for potentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, mate. Well, that's an awesome Steve Irwin, and happy to hear your kids are going well and all married, and next minute you'd be maybe the grandpop or. That's all next steps for sure, and that's the cool bit, because you get to play with them and hand them straight back. It's like, no, I'm busy today, but thanks for having me, fellas. It's been pleasurable. Mick, I'm happy to talk about anything for a long time, and it's been good to have me on. I'm happy for it, and we'll sort out the Chafe Mate stuff. So anyone that's watching or listening, we'll figure that out and get some on you, because it works a treat. Yep. Well, when we release a podcast, we'll put something in the notes so people can.
Oh yeah. And then also with any of the crew from the board clubs that are listening, if they want to, they can get in touch with me. And like I say, I've come down to Vico to do their one, and it's really helpful to the clubs to make their processes that little bit better,
Oh, I reckon that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Because I know, I occasionally judge the Yelling Up board riders, and it's an interesting how everyone's scale is slightly different.
Yeah,
and I find it's the age demographic.
Definitely.
What I think looks good is different to what a 20-year-old looks good, and we need that.
And Rich, if guys and girls want to get in contact with you, what's the best way they can do it, mate? Is it Instagram or something?
Yeah, Insta's pretty good. It's Richie Porta spelled Porta. That's probably the easiest one. Not really on the Facebook, got hacked too many times on that one. But if they DM me on the Instagram, that's the easiest way, and then I can email you or get in contact, via phone. But Instagram, Richie with a Y, Porta with an A.
Awesome, mate. Oh, well, mate, we'll wrap it up. Thanks again.
All right, enjoy the weekend, fellas, and thanks for having me.
Go the Eagles.
See you, Rick.